Hey guys, it's Balrog. Welcome back to part 10 of my guide to the Monopolized achievement for the Halo Master Chief Collection. You know why we're here? It is time, at last, for Gravemind. We have made it. Now, I have a lot of information to cover in this video, and I'm going to try to condense it as much as I can. It's still probably going to be a bit of a long video, though. I'm going to start out with a thorough explanation of the strategy I use to escape the first room consistently, which is probably the most dangerous room in the game. We're also going to go over the strategy for prison skip. That's right, we are going to do prison skip. I have a great strategy that is a mix of consistency and ease of use. It only requires a little bit of timing and is much easier than the method that is used for prison skip on Lasso, if you've ever tried that one. So as far as the skulls we're putting on for this mission, the first one is going to be the So Angry skull, not to be confused with the Anger skull. And in case you've never used the So Angry skull, what it does is it makes it so when a brute enrages, he explodes after a few seconds like a frag grenade. It's kind of like the Grunt funeral skull, but for brutes and only after they enrage. This is really handy for this mission because brutes are scripted to enrage when they're the last member of their group that is alive in range. This means that every time we see two brutes, for example, we only have to kill the first one because the second one will just die automatically after a few seconds as long as he's close enough to the first one when he died. Same thing with a group of three brutes. If we kill the first two, the third one will just automatically die. And not just die, mind you, he'll also explode, which could be great because if grunts die around him, then they'll also explode and create a big chain reaction, because the second skull we're going to be putting on is Grunt Funeral. Now those two skulls, So Angry and Grunt Funeral, are the two important skulls we have to have on. I also have on the Piñata skull as well as the Grunt Birthday Party skull, neither of which are that useful because you won't really have that many opportunities to melee people for grenades, but you might get in a couple, so you might as well turn it on. The important thing, however, is what skulls we are not turning on. I personally do not like having the Boom skull on for this mission when we're using these particular skulls, because So Angry plus Grunt Funeral can really trap you and blow you up in a lot of places, so I do not like having Boom on, and we absolutely cannot have Sputnik on for this mission. And the reason is, the method we're going to use for prison skip on this mission involves a brute meleeing us into the prison entrance hole and then falling in after us. And if we have Sputnik on, it changes the physics, and he will instead knock us over the hole we need to fall down into for prison, and the method that I show in this video will be terribly inconsistent for you. That being said, even though I do have a lot of strategies here to make this mission much easier, this mission and Regret will still be the hardest missions of this entire challenge. You should really not expect to get under par time with this one, even with prison skip. In fact, although I'm going to incorporate some speedrun strategies in a lot of places, there are several places I'm just going to clear normally, because the key to this mission, within the scope of the Monopolized achievement, is just to be as safe as possible and to finish it within a reasonable time frame. As long as you get under 35 minutes or so, that is good enough for this mission for Monopolized, with all the time we have shaved off the other levels. So, with all of that said, let's go ahead and transition to a tutorial of the first room. Alright, as you can see, I have a freshly cleared entrance room for Gravemind here. What we're going to do is clear the first wave, then get into a very specific position to skip a bunch more waves, and then we're going to do, I believe it's the fourth wave, and then we're going to skip the fifth wave as well. So, when you spawn in, you are going to be immediately under fire from two brute honor guards over here. One on the left and one on the right. In fact, there are their bodies right now. 4 grunts will have also spawned, and they are going to turn around and run into these 4 doors immediately. Unless some stray fire hits them or they are blocked, they will go into those doors and only come out when these 2 brutes are dead. So, we're going to deal with the one on the left here first. I understand the safest strategy is supposed to be you crouch here and move left behind this little thing while firing the needler at the left brute. I have also had people tell me they've had luck coming up here and just hiding behind this thing, although I've never really had luck with that. What I usually do is just move around like this in a pattern, and that usually just avoids all their fire. And I also sometimes duck behind this thing. So, by the time you duck behind this, there will be enough needles in the first brute for him to have died, and the second one will enrage. And remember, since we have the So Angry skull on, he will blow up by himself like a frag grenade, so keep your distance. While the second brute throws his tantrum, try to come over and grab the plasma rifle the first brute dropped, and then as soon as the second one blows up, try to grab his as well, and we'll begin to deal with the grunts. Shortly after the second brute dies, these 4 grunts will start coming out of these doors, so go ahead and get your dual plasma rifles and get ready to exterminate them. Make sure to stay at a reasonable distance because remember, Grunt Funeral is on. And then as soon as the last grunt dies, you want to get into this position as soon as possible. You want to move until you're all the way up against the structure here. You don't need to crouch, just walk right up to it. But the important thing here is your position respective to these 2 lights. You want to be seeing exactly this right here when you're focusing on the 2 lights in front of you. And you want to see all of the right light and just this triangle portion of the left one. Then you'll know you're in the exact position you need to be in for the wave skip to work. You need to be in this position by the time Cortana finishes her dialogue, and her last line is, "Oh, I don't think so." As soon as her dialogue ends, we'll wait here for 20 seconds in this exact position. We can go a little bit over, but don't go under 20, and then we can move on to the next section. There's another position in this room you can do this skip at as well, and it's right inside this door. As you can see, it's locked at the moment, but if you just go right into this corner, the door will open, even though it's red, and you can get right back into here. I'm only going to cover this briefly as I won't be using this particular skip in the video, but it does work if you're more comfortable with it. Again, here you're going to be looking for the lights in the corner. And this is exactly what you want to see on both sides here symmetrically. You want to see 1 row of lights on the bottom and almost 2 full rows of lights on the top. But notice we cannot see the 3rd light of the 2nd row. So we only want to see the first 2 lights of the 2nd row on both sides. If you can just see that, you'll know you're in the right position. A good tip for this one is to crouch while you are adjusting your position so that you have more fine control over your movement. And with that done, let's go back to the original position and continue the strategy here. So we're going to wait right in this position for 20 seconds after Cortana says her last line, which is, "Oh, I don't think so." And then we're going to come out and we're going to grab the needler in the middle of the room and jump up on one of the bleachers on the sides, or grandstands, whatever these things are. You're going to want to use this thing to jump up onto the seats there, and then about the time you get up into them, you're going to hear grunts spawning behind you. So you want to get into cover as soon as you can behind this little section. And don't walk out where I am right now. I'm just going to show you there are going to be brutes spawning right around here. There's going to be 2 normal brutes and then a chieftain with a brute shot who is particularly dangerous. And the first thing we're going to do is come over here to this side and shoot at a grunt with the needlers. Very important, we do not want to kill all 4 grunts. We need at least 1 alive, preferably 2. We're doing this to draw the brute's attention to us on that side so that we can sneak over here and deal with them safely from this side. So what we're going to do here is manipulate the physics of this pillar and use a head glitch of a different variety. If we just barely peek out of the side of this pillar to where you can just see a brute, you can shoot them with the needlers and they will not be able to see you because your head is still hidden. And it's a very clean and effective method to take out the brutes. So, when there are only 2 enemies left downstairs, preferably grunts, but no matter what the enemies are, 2 carbine-wielding brutes will spawn up top here with us in the stands. There are 6 total doors they can spawn from, 3 on each side, and they can both spawn on your side, or both on the other side, or 1 on each. How I like to deal with this is, when I know there's only 2 enemies left, I like to get right into this position here. Wait a few seconds and watch your radar closely, and if you see any dots come up on your side, you can either blast them quickly, or duck away from them for safety on the other side of the column, like this. As brutes on the other side of the stands generally don't shoot you when you're up here, the only really dangerous position with this strategy is if you get 1 brute spawn on either end of your side. But then still, even in that event, moving behind the column splits the brutes and you only have to deal with 1 instead of 2. You can also safely fire needle volleys at brutes on the other side and they just won't shoot you back, which is quite convenient. So then, when the carbine brutes are dead, if there's 1 over here, go ahead and swap your plasma rifle for its carbine, and then we're going to head down and deal with the last 2 enemies in the middle of the room. Hopefully both are grunts, but if there are any brutes, try to take them out before you go down, but either way, make sure there's still 1 enemy alive before you jump down, because we're going to get back into position to skip the last wave here. You're going to want to stand near this pedestal, and as soon as you kill the last enemy, preferably with the carbine, get back into position. You do have a couple of seconds, and you do get a checkpoint right beforehand, so you do have a little bit of leeway there, but stay here until you hear Cortana say her final piece of dialogue, put me on the pedestal, and then you should be good to go. I know all that was a ton of information, so let's just see it in action right now. I'm going to cut over to the real run, and we'll finally get this thing going here. So the first thing we're going to do, as is customary in every legendary Gravemind run, is load up the mission, and then die immediately, swap to classic graphics, and then restart the mission. From here, we're going to move left, shooting at the left brute in this circular pattern I demonstrated. He's going to blow up, this guy's going to enrage, give him just a few seconds and he's going to blow up on his own. We're going to pick up the first plasma rifle, pick up the second one here, and begin dealing with the grunts. Make sure to be aware that Grunt Funeral is on, do not stay near them after they die, watch where they throw their grenades, and just move around in a circular pattern like this and you should be okay. Immediately after they're dead, go and swap to the needler and get into position here, make sure to keep an eye on the lights, and listen for Cortana's last line of dialogue here.
Seal the exits!
Oh, I don't think so.
33 seconds, so we're going to wait here 20 seconds and we're going to move at the 53-second mark. Keep an eye on these lights, you want to be seeing exactly what I'm seeing here. Remember, you can also use that door over there as well for this strategy, as I mentioned in the tutorial, if you're more comfortable with that one. So we're coming up on the 53-second mark here. We're going to come out now, pick up the second needler, and we're going to get into the bleachers here. Jump on this pillar and jump right up, and we're going to want to kill a grunt here so that the brutes are alerted to where we are on this side. Remember to try to only kill one grunt because we want at least 2 alive later. So I see the brutes are aware of where we are now, so we're going to go over here and head glitch, and they should be in a favorable position for us to hit with the head glitch here. There's one. Oh, gonna get back into cover because there's 2 more. And as you can see, thanks to the head glitch, we can see them, but they can't see us. The third brute is now going to enrage and kill himself thanks to the So Angry Skull, so we're going to survey the area, see if there are only 1 to 2 grunts left down there, and then get into position to deal with the carbine brutes here. I didn't see any dots popping up on the radar, so I know they spawned on the other side. We're going to move out and fire some needle volleys at them. For some reason they won't shoot us with the carbine from the other side, so we are safe from them up here. So now we're going to hop down and get near the pedestal and kill the last grunt to initiate the last wave skip. I would like to have a carbine at this point, but since both brutes spawn on the other side, I'm going to make do with this brute shot here. Make sure whatever weapon you choose, you kill the last grunt when you're near this pedestal so that we can do the last wave skip immediately. Get into the same position we were in before and just keep an eye on these lights. They should be in this exact formation as you see here, and we're just going to wait for Cortana's last dialogue.
Put me down on one of the pedestals near the door.
As soon as she says that, we are good to go. So we're going to run over to these pedestals, and I'm just looking around for grenades here because they are few and far between at the beginning here. We are going to put Cortana on the pedestal first to start the timer to open the door and then go back for the carbines. Chances are you will probably already have a carbine at this point if one of the 2 brutes spawned on your side, but I still recommend going to wherever the other brute was and getting his carbine ammo as well if you haven't already. There are 3 grunts here that are scripted to walk into and out of this room as well as soon as Cortana has it open. If you're ready to go through this door as soon as it opens, these guys will still probably be in the other room. Either way, take them out and we will advance. Make sure to grab any grenades you see as well. We are once again going to go for some head glitch action here. There are 2 carbine brutes up here as well as a whole host of grunts. But remember, you only have to kill one of the brutes and the other one will enrage and blow himself up thanks to So Angry, and the grunts will just be grunt funerals. It'll be great. So, we're going to clean up this exceptionally brave grunt here, and then as soon as this door opens, there's going to be 2 honor guard brutes. We're going to stick the one on the right with a plasma grenade to make the left one rage, and then take a step back into the room so that he doesn't follow us in. If you don't have any plasma grenades, which is entirely possible at this point, kill him with a volley of needles. There are 2 more brutes about halfway inside of this next room. Kill one of them and then immediately begin running out right here to dispatch this jackal. The way this room works is, as soon as the 4th enemy dies, which is going to be that second brute when he blows up, a wave of enemies begins coming up the lift and we want to be close to jumping down by the time they arrive. You can jump right on this beam and safely take out the enemies that are going to come through this door. There should be 1 normal jackal, 1 jackal sniper, and 2 grunts. However, safety has never been my strong suit, so I'm just going to jump down and get right in their face. I like to grab the Jackal Sniper's beam rifle here as well for later. When you hit the load zone at the bottom of this ramp in this area, a brute will spawn behind you, but he almost never notices you. For safety, we're going to hide by this door, and 3 jackals will run out of the door in front of you and off to your right. They will come back around in a moment, so you can either pick them off when they make their second trip by, or shoot them now. As you can see, the second jackal almost made a fool of me, so I'm just going to let the third one go by here and back into this room. I usually would not do this. You generally want to kill them before they're able to go back into here, but it is what it is. Somewhere close here, there's also going to be a brute. Either dispatch him with a carbine, or stick him if you would like. That jackal up there is usually hidden, but he's not this time, so we're going to take him out. Sometimes this jackal here actually has his back to you and you can get a nice smack in, but not this time. After 2 of those 3 enemies die, you get more brutes and grunts coming in. Unfortunately, these brutes are generally too staggered for the So Angry Skull to work, so you often have to take both of them out the normal way. We're going to advance here in just a moment. Note the carbine ammo and the grenades on the right side if you need them. going to take out one more grunt here and then move halfway into the next hallway, because there are two jackals that spawn from this room that we're going to want to kill, and moving there triggers them to come out, but they do take a moment. We're going to fill up on carbine ammo here, and the jackals should be out by now. One went down pretty easy, but the other is of course going to be a complete pain. And there he goes. So this next room is going to have a couple of brutes and a whole bunch of grunts as well. But this one I think we're going to utilize the So Angry Skull. You don't always get to use it in this room, but it does happen often. So as we clear out the last enemies in this room, let's discuss Prison Skip. We're going to do it here, and we want to move in a very specific way to get a checkpoint right before the door. We want to make absolutely sure we don't actually open the door, because that triggers the jackals to start moving and the brutes to start moving in the next room, and we want to make sure we have the checkpoint and the right position before that. So be quite careful to follow the path I'm doing now. We're going to turn around and kill this last grunt, and then we're going to go up here, stay away from the door, and we're going to get right into this position here, and as you notice, we got a checkpoint and the door did not open, so no events in that room are occurring right now. And as you can see, I have momentarily paused the run because I need a moment to discuss Prison Skip. There are two methods, and I'm going to cut and show both in just a moment. The method I'm going to use for this run is very easy to pull off and is reasonably consistent. Whether you get it or not, though, does depend on the brute's AI, and you can get unlucky a few times in a row. The second method is a bit more consistent, but requires very precise timing and positioning, and is harder to pull off. No matter what you choose, I recommend doing Prison Skip because even if you fail it 20 times in a row, it's still faster than going down and doing prison and much safer as well. So let's get into it. Here is method 1, slowed down a bit. We're going to go into the room and then shoot the jackal. Then we're going to drop down and go to the right side here. You may take some shots from that brute up there. Go into the lift room and immediately break this threshold and run right back out and into cover here. And what we want to see is what happens to this brute here, and it does happen quite consistently. He is going to try to jump down the lift, and he is going to fail, and this is going to break his AI. And then he is constantly going to be attempting to jump down the hole and failing. What we want to do is start approaching him when he's facing us, like he is right now, which is going to give us the time to get behind him when he does his next cycle here. You see he's turned around toward us now, but he will not notice us. And he's going to leap back one more time, and we're going to put ourselves between him and the hole that goes down to the prison, and he's going to notice us now, get startled, and smack us into the hole, and then he will also fall down on top of us. At this point, we have our trick set up, and now we need to fall all the way to the prison load zone, but just to the prison load zone and no farther. You'll know you've reached the load zone for the prison because you'll see the loading sign on your screen, and you'll generally see that around the time you pass the 4th or 5th one of these blue rings. When you see that load zone, we're going to melee cancel using the brute above us to fly all the way back to the upper load zone, skipping the prison entirely. Melee canceling is not as hard to do as it looks. What you need to do is alternate hitting the jump and melee buttons at the same time with the reload button. So on a default controller setup, you'll be hitting A and B at the same time, then hitting X, then back to A and B at the same time over and over again. You'll have to do this quickly, but you don't really have to go as fast as you can, although you can if you'd like. It's pretty comfortable to do on the default controller setup with the XAB combination. In fact, I play bumper jumper, and what I normally do is I will go into the prison and I'll do the first part of the skip where we get into the lift. Then I will pause, swap to the default controls, do the prison skip like this, and then I will swap back to bumper jumper when I reach the top. So that's method 1. Let's touch on method 2 real quick, and then I'll go back to the normal run. So as I mentioned, this method is a bit more consistent but requires much more practice and precision to pull off. It starts the same, go kill this jackal. Then we'll want to swap to our beam rifle and get in this exact position here and wait until you see the second brute come by. As soon as you see him, you're going to run at him while body shotting him twice with the beam rifle to stun him. Then you're going to want to get just the right distance away from him to trigger his AI to try to melee you, but you have to be far enough away so that you can back up in time to dodge the melee so that you don't take damage. If you move too close to him, his melee will connect, and you won't be able to survive the hit that will take you down to the prison. And if you're too far, he'll just start shooting you, so the positioning is important. Then, as you saw there, you want to sidestep and then melee him to stun him one more time, get into position, and he should knock you right into the lift. Again, once this method has been learned, it is a bit more consistent, but it is quite tricky to get down, and if you're just going for Monopolized, I highly recommend you just take the extra couple seconds and use the slightly less consistent, but much easier method of just going to the side. So as I mentioned, the side method is reasonably consistent, but I did want to show a couple of fail states for it, right before we get back to the main run. So sometimes you'll go in and trigger the threshold here, and the guys will just decide to stay up and shoot at you. And then the brute shot guy can also come down and make trouble, and this is what happens in this time. The second guy decided to not come down the lift, and then the brute shot guy arrived, and that is a whiff there. In this one, they decided to just sit at the entrance and shoot at me and not even come into the room. And in this one, the brutes got a little too excited to see me and decided to celebrate amongst each other. Well, anyway, let's get back to the main run, shall we? Okay, so let's finally get prison skipped on in the main run, shall we? So, go outside and kill this jackal. Go down to the right, as I do here. Just barely dip into the room, and I think I actually failed the first attempt here. I think the brutes went down the lift too early, so I reverted here. Go in again, kill the same jackal. Cross the threshold one more time, go to the hiding spot. Peek around the corner, and the brute is stuck here. We're going to go when he's facing us like he is now. When he turns away from us this time, jump between us, and he will knock us into the prison. That is a great position to be in right there. I'm changing my settings here to default, as I mentioned in the tutorial. We're going to hit X and A and B alternating as soon as you pass the fifth ring here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as soon as the polarity shifts, I'm going to swap back to Bumper Jumper, and we don't need this brute anymore. As soon as you're heading back up the lift automatically, we can go ahead and kill him. And just like that, we have skipped prison like Epstein, except with less death. Grab some carbine ammo from this crate, and then turn around, and opposite the carbine ammo crate, there's going to be an open door. There should be elites coming through it, through a couple of plasma grenades, and the most important thing here is not to underestimate the buggers, because they are very dangerous and can kill you quite quickly. Here, we want to make sure the Marines follow us into the next room to help deal with the buggers, so make sure they're not in combat with anything in this room, and make sure they follow you in. When you come a little way into this room, there will be another wave of buggers that should be in combat with these elites on the side, but sometimes they decide to ignore the elites and focus on you instead. As you advance further, another pair of brutes will spawn and engage the elites as well. It's worth noting that the speedrun strat for this room is just to run immediately from this door to the far door and do a head glitch in the doorframe and wait for the buggers to pass and engage the elites. I'll show the positioning for this and you may want to try it, but since we're on the Chief and not the Arbiter, the head glitch positioning is a bit more difficult. So, when you get to this next door here, another wave of buggers is going to come out, and we're going to throw a couple of grenades right here, and then as soon as the door opens, try to stick a couple of them if you can, and then immediately run back and let the Marines engage them. And I'm also going to show you the place where you would head glitch to try to skip these guys, but again, I'm just going to show the slow strats here. We have plenty of time. So, if you want to attempt to skip those guys, immediately when you come into the first door, run right here, and the buggers should go and pass and engage those elites. And you can come right into this room and walk over here to the right to avoid their fire. And a jackal will always jump down right there, and the second jackal will go on. Here, a little further into the room, you're going to see a bunch of elites and brutes fighting each other, as well as a few jackals. If you help the brutes here just a bit, they usually do a pretty good job of killing each other, especially with the So Angry skull on. So stay back and pick them off while they're still distracted by each other, and move up, and it looks like we have one shieldless Honor Guard elite left. So this next section can be a bit RNG heavy based on what the enemy AI decides to do. We're going to go into this room and run past the two hunters. The hunters almost never kill you, but they do make it so you can't retreat back into this room from the next area. We're going to go out of this door and immediately look to the right, and there's going to be a jackal sniper in this tower. Kill him as quick as you can, and hopefully these brutes and elites are going to be in combat with each other and ignore you. Jump up onto this rock and wrap around the right here for safety. You can go further down there, but don't go too far because there is a death floor. I almost never have guys shoot at me when I'm over here, but I did this time, of course. So I'm just going to hide for a moment and get my shield back, and then we're going to jump up onto that rock. There's a little flat area on this rock you can jump onto as well. You need a little bit of momentum, and I didn't have enough here, so I actually missed it. So make sure to have a little momentum and then crouch jump up there, then do a jump up here and get onto this top section. We are pretty safe up here, but I always like to jump onto the other side of this little upraised section here and walk on this far path. Note right here, we do not want to jump off of here, we want to just drop. If you have too much momentum and jump too far down this ramp, you can actually die from the fall timer. There is a crate of carbine right here on the left if you need to fill up, and we're going to go through this door and across a bridge. So on the other side of this bridge, there's going to be a jackal sniper on one of the two sides. And after you get across, there's also going to be enemies coming from the left. We're going to want to kill the jackal sniper as soon as we can, or if he's ignoring you, you can just leave him. And then we're going to want to get up onto this part as soon as we can and jump onto one of these little ribs. Hopefully before the enemies arrive to shoot us, and then we're just going to walk across this top section and skip this entire next area. You can cut a bunch of corners here to save a bit of time, but I'm just going to do it the safe way for the demonstration purposes of this video. You are generally pretty safe up here and don't get shot too often, but of course, since it's a tutorial video, they do have to shoot at me. Make sure not to take that bridge over. We do want to continue going across the top here. So, when we get to the end of this bridge, there are going to be two jetpack elites that come out of the door, and their AI can vary quite a bit. If the brutes that just went by are still on the other side of the bridge and haven't come across, the elites should engage them. Sometimes they like to fly away from the door anyway, and sometimes they just like to stand by the door, in which case you'll just need to stick them with a couple of grenades while heading safely on the right side of the rail up here. It looks like there is one brute left over here, so they did decide to engage him, so we're just going to sneak past him and into this door and down the hallway. Okay, so I almost always just run past this next room, and it is fairly consistent to do, but it's not something I want to recommend for the scope of this run, so I'm just going to clear this room instead. And the reason is, as soon as you run past this room, you find yourself in a hallway with two brutes and potentially two jackals as well. And this is the one place in the level where the So Angry skill puts us at a disadvantage, because as soon as you kill the first brute, the second one likes to immediately charge you, and you have to kill him extremely quickly to avoid his explosion, as you don't have anywhere to run if you didn't clear this room. So we are just going to stick by this entrance door with our carbine and beam rifle and clear normally, and those are the two jackals I was talking about, and here come the two problematic brutes themselves. So to recap, if you end up missing your Monopolized achievement by 30 seconds or less, it is strictly the fault of these two brutes here. In fact, that one brute also has a brute shot, which is quite dangerous here, and he keeps evading my headshots. I think we're going to get him right here. There we go. And So Angry did help us here. Bang. Very nice. So if you would like to try the speedrun route through this level, all you have to do is drop down to the right here, when you come into the room. Then run under this bridge here, and jump up on this weapons crate here, and then through this door. And if you run through, those brutes and or jackals should be right on the other side of this doorway here waiting for you. It's also worth noting that I wanted to recommend this safe strategy for this video, because you can also get an additional group of enemies that come right through that door that include honor guard elites, and I've never been able to figure out what exactly triggers them to spawn or not, but I think it has to do with what the jetpack brutes do when you come into that room from the outside. Swap your beam rifle here with a fresh one, and we're going to do the same jump, except we don't have to rush, because there are no enemies chasing us this time. Anyway, we're going to take a nice leisurely stroll right over the heads of this group of enemies as well, following the exact same path we did last time we were in one of these areas. Although we are free to jump down and use the light bridge this time instead of walking across, as there are going to be no enemies waiting for us on the other side. There is also another crate of beam rifles behind us if you happen to have missed the last one, although don't worry about carbine ammo too much because we're going to swap our carbine out with a brute shot temporarily quite soon. We're going to walk into this room and go forward a little bit, and then 3 brutes should spawn and come through that door at the top. We're just going to pick them off with either the beam rifle or the carbine, whatever you would like here. And remember, after you kill the first 2, the third will enrage. Like I'm enraged every time I get shot with a brute shot. I'm sure he deserved that for something. Anyway, swap your carbine with one of these brute shots here, and we're going to jump over this doorway to despawn all the enemies in the next room. Get on this little piece right here and do a jump and shoot your brute shot at the same time. Very easy jump onto here. You can also take that left path across if you walk into the room, but we are just going to take this path through, and there's another crate of carbine right here you can replace your brute shot with. Head to the left here and then wrap around to the right and into the next room. There is an elite immediately down the ramp in this room, but he kindly has his back to us, so just walk in and assassinate him, then a handful of grunts are going to approach us from the left side. And there he is. And there he goes. And some grunts are going to start coming up now. Remember, we do have Grunt Funeral on, so you might get some chain explosions here. Always be aware of flying grunts. And note the cache of carbine ammo here on the right. So there's a stealth elite in the next room here, and what I'd like to do is swap my beam rifle out for this plasma pistol, then fire at him and miss twice because the plasma pistol can't home in on something with camo. Then I like to get frustrated and swap my plasma pistol back out with the beam rifle and kill him with this instead. Works every time. So there is a fuel rod right here to the left that we want to bring to the end of the mission with us. You can either swap your beam rifle out with it, or just weapon juggle it into the next room and keep it with you. Go ahead and stick this guy if you can, and then I like to grab some plasma grenades right here if I need any, and juggle the weapon a little further into the room. Then I like to jump up here and see if the second elite is wrapping around to shoot me here. He is not this time, so I'm just going to jump up onto this little platform and make a trip around to him. As we approach this door, it'll open and another brute and a couple of jackals will come in, and if they see the elite, they'll just engage him in combat instead. I do recommend making your priority to kill the elite because the jackals and brutes are a bit easier to kill with the carbine, but it shouldn't matter too much here. I'm now done with the carbine for right now, so I'm going to go ahead and swap it out with the fuel rod so I can make sure to take the fuel rod with me. There is a jackal sniper in the next area that you can kill right to the right as you walk into the room, and you can take his beam rifle as well. But I prefer to take the beam rifle with me here, as we will see plenty of carbine ammo before we'll need it again. As soon as you walk through this door, the jackal sniper I mentioned will be immediately to your right. He is usually engaged with the elites and can actually take a couple of them out for you, but I like to kill him anyway just to be safe. There are going to be 3 elites down here, and they love to get into this turret and become very easy targets for you with headshots. Number 1 went down, and number 2 immediately took his place. Number 3 is not going to cooperate, instead he's going to try to retreat, and we're just going to headshot him real quick there. Go ahead and swap your beam rifle out with the jackals if it's fresher, and then we're going to want to turn around and face the roof here, because 2 buggers are going to come down, and you're going to want to snipe them. Right there. Somehow that first one missed, but now he's down. And then we're going to want to retreat just a bit, and a couple of elites are going to come out here. I think I only got 1 this time somehow. There's usually 2 here, though. We'll go ahead and take care of this elite hiding behind this crate here, and I am convinced there's another elite hiding somewhere, so I'm going to throw a grenade to try to weed him out, because we don't want him to intervene as we're trying to deal with the hunters, but it looks like we only got the 1 this time, so I'm going to go ahead and move up and pull the fuel rod out. You can pretty safely get in their faces here, but just for safety I want to demonstrate the safe strategy of coming down the ramp and just kind of picking them off with a couple of shots here and there. So we have reached the last room, Mausoleum of the Arbiter. So one thing you can do in this room is kill all of the elites on the right side and then the 2 hunters, and if the brutes are still alive, you can walk up to the door and it will open, and the final wave of the white spec op elites will come in and engage the brutes and you can run past them. But the strategy is a bit inconsistent, especially with So Angry, so I'm going to show a different strategy instead and just clear it. So what I'm going to do is juggle a fresh beam rifle from that crate you just saw, along with a carbine up to the room here, and I'm also going to try to find a plasma pistol to juggle in here as well, because for this method, as soon as the final wave spawns, we're instead going to retreat back to our weapons cache here and deal with them the way Bungie intended us to. So here I'm going to walk into the room and trigger the fight between the brutes and the elites, and then retreat to this room for a little bit to make sure they have aggro on each other. As soon as I know that both groups are distracted, I like to come in and try to shoot the fuel rod guy and get him out of the way, because he is the most dangerous of them. And there he is now. And if any of these guys start firing on you, you can just retreat back into this room for safety, because remember, we're just trying to be safe here, and we're not trying to go for part-time, even though with all of these safe strategies we've used, we're still almost going to get under part-time with this run. As you can see, I unloaded some fuel rods to soften the elites up on the right side before I advance. We do want to make sure to save some fuel rod for the hunters here, though. The hunters will automatically come out when you move up to here, but they will also come out after you've killed a certain number of enemies. And I'd love to walk right in front of the hunter blast. It's my favorite pastime. So, now that the elites are dead, I'm going to turn my attention to the hunters here while they are still distracted by the brutes, as they are still quite dangerous. You can also find the fuel rod guy there as I just did and take his ammo. Fun bit of lore about this room, if you happen to not know, this is the Mausoleum of the Arbiter, where we see the prophets give the Arbiter his armor for the first time in an earlier cutscene. So now we just have these 2 brutes left, and we could, in theory, if we weren't being flanked constantly by them, go up to the final door and let the last wave in to engage the brutes, but we're just going to take things slow here and deal with them normally. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a plasma pistol from the middle of the room here, which one of the buggers dropped, and take it back to our weapons cache by the entrance door. There are also plasma pistols and extra carbine ammo and extra beam rifles in the crates outside of this room if you happen to need any more supplies dealing with this final wave. So, this final wave consists of 2 camo elites, 2 white spec op elites, and then 1 white sword elite. The beam rifle is good for taking out the camo elites as you see here, but as I'll demonstrate right now, it's bad for taking out the spec op elites as they have much more shield. So the best strategy here is to use the beam rifle for the camo elites, and then swap to the plasma pistol carbine combo to deal with the other 3. So here I saw that sword guy and thought he was coming for me and thought he was the priority, so I swapped to the carbine here to get ready to attack him, and then he decided to just go back instead and let the camo guy deal with me. So I'm just going to sit here and play musical weapons and dance around with the camo elite for a while the spec op elites all have a dinner party in the background without us. But as I get a chance to show here, we can just use this door and take it real slow and real safe because we have plenty of time. And nothing will rack up more extra time during your runs here than rushing in too quickly and dying repeatedly. So, now that last camo guy has finally been dealt with, I want to swap to my plasma pistol to deal with the last 3. It's hidden back there by that door pretty well, so I don't see it right now, so instead I just walk back into this previous area and pick up one right from here. I had thought that one of the 968 grenades that Camo Elite threw at me in the room here must have knocked it out, but it was not the case, it was actually just in the corner here. Silly me. So if you are really far from an enemy, you can actually shoot them with a plasma pistol burst and they won't move out of the way, but even there was a bit too close unfortunately, so he was able to dodge. No problem at all though, as since these guys don't have camo, the plasma pistol's homing shot works on them quite nicely, so they are very easy to take out. We're just going to move around to the left here with our trusty combo and take them out as soon as we see them. And the last 2 enemies in Gravemind are down. We have conquered the level at last. All that's left for us to do now is walk out of this door and to the end of this walkway. I know this was a really long video and there was a lot of information to process in it, but I really hope you found it helpful. And if you're here with me in the end, the Monopolized achievement should be yours soon, because the last 3 levels are nowhere near as bad as this one or Regret. And here we are finally at the very end of the mission. Let the cutscene begin. A couple of things in closing. Just keep in mind you only need to get 30-35 minutes or so on this mission, and that will be good enough for Monopolized. I've even had people tell me they got 45 on it and just went back and shaved time off of the other missions instead of coming back to this one. Our next mission is going to be Uprising, and if you thought Delta Halo was broken, oh baby, you are in for a surprise. Now that we have Gravemind taken care of, it is all comparatively smooth sailing here on out for the last 3. Although, remember, this is still Halo 2 Legendary, so we're not out of the woods quite yet. I have done a lot of talking in this video, and I am almost done. The very last thing I want to say before I go is, of course, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it very much. I really hope this guide was able to help you, and I will see you on the next episode.